A severe weather event is likely today across portions of the southeastern United States, with a QoCS line of thunderstorms bringing the potential for scattered damaging wind gusts, and even a few tornadoes across southern Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, and southwestern Georgia. However, there is a conditional risk that a few low-top supercells could fire ahead of a line, which would bring the potential for even a couple strong tornadoes. Anyways, let's get straight into this weather forecast. First of all, looking at our Storm Prediction Center outlook for today, we currently have a slight risk of severe weather across the Florida Panhandle, southern Alabama, into southwestern Georgia. That's where our main risk of severe weather will be. Looking at our tornado risk, we have a 5% tornado risk across southern Alabama, southwestern Georgia, into the Florida Panhandle, where you can see the potential for a few QoCS spin-up tornadoes within our line of thunderstorms there. And if we do get a few of those low-top supercells to develop in front of it, we could see the potential for a strong tornado or two, although that risk is pretty conditional at this moment. But I will make future updates today to let you guys know if anything changes about this. For our wind risk, we have a 50% risk of damaging wind gusts across southern Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, southwestern Georgia. We could see some scattered damaging wind gusts reaching 65 to 70 miles an hour within our line of thunderstorms there. And our hail risk is less than 5% for severe hail. If we do see any hail, it likely be at those low top supercells, and it would likely be very small, not even close to severe limits. Looking at our discussion right now, we're talking about 500 to 1 voltage per kilogram of mid-layer CAPE across the main risk area. That's what is forecast, and there will be enough low-level shear to see some brief QoCS circulation, some brief supercells in the line that could produce tornadoes there, but nothing too significant. And they are mentioning a few discrete cells ahead of the line cannot be entirely ruled out, but we're talking about how the fast-moving front and the likely shallow limited buoyancy should prevent them from getting super high top, but we could still see a few discrete cells out in front of the line, but that is a conditional risk for now. Next, looking at a few of our weather models here. First, we're going to start with the HRRR. We're actually going to go back to the 12Z runs. This is the latest fall run we have. You can see generally you have that QoCS starting to form back there, and by 15Z it's already entering Alabama there. And we could start to see the potential for a few discrete cells ahead of the line, but you can see generally it gets messy ahead of the line. Doesn't look like the cells will really be super discrete in this run, but you can see the QoCS will still bring the potential for some damaging wind gusts and some tornadoes there across southern Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, eventually into southwestern Georgia. You can see there's a few cells within the line there, but ahead of the line it's kind of messy, but you can see there's a few discrete cells ahead of the line, semi-discrete cells potentially. That could be interesting there. Looking at our CAPE, looking at our ML CAPE here, you can see generally right now we have about 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE. You can see western Florida Panhandle gets above 1,000. There's a little bit of an uptrend there. That could increase our tornado potential slightly with more energy there. And then we're going to look at what our dew points could be. You can see dew points very, very good there in the mid to upper 60s there. That's very good dew points. Maybe reaching 70 degrees there on the western Florida Panhandle there briefly. That would be very good for some tornadoes there. And looking at our temperatures, you can see right now it's almost 100% humidity in a lot of these areas. The temperature dew point spread is very close together, so that means these storms will be more surface-based. And if we do go to our relative humidity, you can see 90s of our moisture there, 90% moisture, which is very good for our thunderstorms there, for the tornado and wind potential. Looking at the wrap, You can see generally, this is not as high resolution, but you can still see that line moving into Alabama by around 1415Z. This one might be a little faster, although it is not as high resolution. You can see we have a potential for a few cells ahead of the line there, but it's kind of hard to see on this model since it's not as good resolution. Looking at our cape, let's look at our ML cape real quick. Maybe a little less than the HRRR there across the western Florida Panhandle. This model hasn't been great with this event so far, so I wouldn't look at the numbers too much, because this one hasn't been matching up with what the Storm Prediction Center has been saying, but the RAP is starting to come in agreement with the rest of the models now. And looking at our dew points here, you can see generally same as the HRRR basically, except a little less across the western Florida Panhandle. Looking at our temperatures, you can see generally the same there, mid 60s to low 70s there. And if we go to our relative humidity, you can see generally pretty good moisture there. Looking at our wind speeds at the surface, you can see generally to the south and around, that will be around 50 to 60 knots of wind shear there. And if we go to 500 millibars, that's generally going to be more to the west, to the southwest there, and it's going to be closer to 80 or 90 knots of shear, maybe 70 to 80 knots of shear, that's enough change of direction and speed with height there. And next we're going to look at the NAM here. Looking at the NAM, you can see by 15Z it's entering Alabama. By midday it's already across central Alabama, entering the Florida Panhandle there. 21Z Southwestern Georgia. Looking at our cape here, you can see right now, you can see the cape isn't as widespread. Maybe a more limited tornado threat a little to the north there. The worm sector is a little smaller, but I wouldn't trust this as much as the other two models, as it's not as high resolution. Looking at our, going to our dew points here, generally mid 60s, high 60s there, a little less than the HRRR and the RAP there across western Florida, the Florida Panhandle there. Looking at our temperatures, maybe a little bit cooler, so closer spread there. Our humidity is a little higher there, so that would be better for surface-based storms. And then going to the near surface wind speeds, you can see generally 50 to 60 knots of wind shear, actually a lot more wind shear there, widespread 60 to 70 knots of wind shear there. And going to 500 millibars there, and that was generally to the south. This one has it more to the southwest, and you can see that's closer to 80 knots of wind shear, so generally a good change of direction and speed with height. So, if you're in southern Alabama, southwestern Georgia, or the Florida Panhandle, keep an eye out for those new storm prediction center outlooks, and if anything major changes, I will make an update in a YouTube short later today. Today I would like to give a shout out to my friend. His channel name is JJettas18MVP. You should go subscribe to his channel, or at least check it out if you haven't already. Goodbye.